I reminded you that you are perfect, would you argue me down or step into your perfection? Welcome to Perfect Mode, where there are no excuses, no expectations, and we explore the world without limitations. I'm JClay, rapper, the spiritual teacher, with my co-host Troy Washington, your friendly neighborhood realtor. Let's be real, so let's be perfect. Everything, anything, plenty things, perfect. Everything, anything, plenty things, perfect mode. Everything, anything, plenty things, perfect mode. Everything, anything, plenty things, perfect mode, 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 everything, anything, plenty things, perfect mode, everything, anything, plenty things, perfect mode. Perfect.
What up? Welcome to Perfect Mode. And first off, let me start by telling you that we love y'all. We're grateful for the opportunity to be anywhere, sharing our thoughts, and hopefully helping you realize that you are perfect. And the reason why I can say that unapologetically is because I know that you are one of one, numero uno. You cannot be replicated, duplicated. And the only reason you think that you're not perfect is if you're looking at this person on the side of you and saying, I'm not them. But guess what? You are you, and that's all you need. And of course, it's yours truly, Troy Washington, your friendly neighborhood realtor. And I have my boy JClay, spiritual rapper and teacher. And we about to jump on here and talk about how to turn any crisis into a spiritual awakening. How to turn any crisis. You know, the crazy thing is, bro, I see it done all the time. I don't think people even know how they do it. I maybe have witnessed it within myself, don't know how I did it, but let's get into it. What up, Jay?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Happy day, happy Sunday on this perfect day. Being in the perfect place. Shout out to all my perfect people. I want to say real quick, we're supposed to have a special guest, Blaze, on here, but he lost his voice. He got a fever. We wish him a speedy recovery. We will get him back on here at a later date. But yeah, I definitely want to talk about this because I've gone through this myself, and it's a very powerful thing, and it's life changing. Like it's turn your life around, no matter what you're going through, no matter where you're at. Yeah. And also, if you go ahead, Troy.
No, I want to say before we get into it, the funniest thing, and I guess it's not necessarily funny, but something that I've said, tongue in cheek, I guess is how they say that term, or I kind of just randomly say it throughout time. And I'm talking about the history of time is things like, I don't want to wait till I get guys ultimatum before I start doing things. Yeah. And this is what makes me think of that, like, because a lot of times when I've seen people go through crisis, and the crisis is subjective too, just FYI. Some crisis could be having the flu and being at the house with a cold. You just don't know how to handle that much. So allowing those things to catapult you into a realm that you want to be in, but you're not used to. My bad. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, no, you good. I just want to say too, before we get started, be sure to share, comment, like, subscribe to others that you know that this will help. Click the link, to subscribe on our on the all the streaming platforms, which this will go live on every Tuesday. The live is Sunday, but the replay is on Tuesday on all the streaming platforms. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's start off. Let's define some terms first. I know you talked about crisis at first, like crisis. Well, yeah, how would you define crisis?
To me, crisis is honestly just any hiccup, unexpected, without an immediate resolution. You know what I mean? And what I mean by that is, I think that there are things that pop up all the time, but because we're such, adaptable people, we're able to maneuver and kind of get out of it. But there are sometimes things come up, i.e. the flu, and there is no solution that's on the surface that you can get to. And so what'll happen is, to me, it kind of sends you into a whirlwind. And again, I'm not trying to pick on our guests because I want our guests to come on, but I can imagine waking up with a fever and and your voice being gone, and your entire day is predicated on having your voice and not having a fever, like everything. And so, just being able to bounce back from that. So to me, it's just kind of an unexpected circumstance with no solution, no immediate solution.
And I will add to that. I would say it's a circumstance with no immediate solution, that you feel affects you negatively. Because, you know, there are a lot of immediate circumstances and it's like, oh, can't do nothing about that, you know, but like if you feel that it's going to truly affect your day to day or just like your well-being is at stake, you're like, oh man, I gotta, this is a crisis. We got to get out of this. What can we do? And so it's like you get into crisis management mode, which is something different. So now let's get into awakening and spiritual awakening, because they're almost the same, but it's slightly different. How would you define an awakening or even a spiritual awakening at that?
And I know that you say that they are different, and I can see the differences in them, but the baseline of them to me are the same. And what I mean is, it's a new awareness. It does again when I talk about this flu, or I keep saying flu. That's my apologies. I don't want to give you nothing you don't have. When I talk about this fever and I talk about your voice being gone, there's that initial you know, crisis management moment that you go through. But then I think the awakening is the awareness of, let me really identify what this is, how this really impacts me, versus me going over the deep end. Let's see what this is, how this serves me. And I think an awakening, it just allows you to get outside of the box and look at it from a bird's eye view to see what the purpose of something is. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. And just real quick, I just looked it up and it had just a cool, simple definition for awakening that I love: an act of waking from sleep. And many times, like when you're in a crisis mode, you can't really handle it from being in that mode. Like you almost have to awake to a new level to realize, like you said, like to reassess it and see what it truly is. You can't be in that mindset. Like you have to elevate in some way. And I know that's not always easy. And that's what we're going to talk about in this, like how to do that. And then on another level of I would say the spiritual awakening is even waking from the dream that you could ever be in a crisis. So it's like you bypass that altogether, that when things happen, you don't attach an immediate meaning to it. You recognize that it just is what it is. And that as all things come and fade, this will too. Yeah, go ahead.
No, and I want to add to that too and say that a big part of it is, I mean, again, if you just probe and ask people, or even if you just if you awaken yourself to see how life is really going on a daily basis, you know, some people might say that we walk around in a dream state all the time. You know, it's kind of similar to what the Matrix was. Like, we are so accustomed and habitual in our nature that life becomes it becomes a trance, and like literally we're not awake, right? So that's the reason why when you wake up with a fever, your normal day has completely changed, and that you have no choice but to say, I want to get back. I'm gonna say you have no choice but to get that, but you essentially act in a state of, I want to get back to my normal state no matter what, even if it's a state of trance, not necessarily opening your blinders to understand. Let me look at this from a different standpoint. But I think that we actually do walk around in a dream state. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and before we get into the how to, I do want to talk about like even why this might be necessary, or why you would want to turn the crisis into a spiritual awakening. It's because, like you said, like we do things so automatic. We do things so in a trance-like state that we're asleep to it all, and we don't even know how we're contributing to the circumstances that are brought about to even make us believe that we're in a crisis. And again, like the reason you want to get outside of that is because you can start to pinpoint, like, oh, that's how I brought this into my awareness. This is how I brought this into my experience, and I no longer want to have this. I don't want to choose this any longer. I want to be able to just switch my attention, and so switch my livelihood, so switch my experience. And you do have the power to do that, and it's a lot easier than some would have you believe it to be. And that's one thing I want to get into. So yeah, let's start. Do you have any experiences you would say of you were kind of under that and you jumped out of it, like you were in crisis mode, you're like, oh shoot, I gotta get out?
And I think that's where I like to talk about the awakening. I know that's not where we're going with it.
Yeah.
But again, to me trying to think, it's going to take me a second to think back about a time when I wasn't aware that I went into crisis mode immediately when I went into it. Because in most cases now, I do, again, even if I'm not awake or aware, I try to be.
Yeah.
And I know that's a part that we want to get to, but in most cases in my life, matter of fact, let me tell you like this. I literally just said a while ago how through observation and also me doing it myself, there have been plenty of times in my life where I said to myself, it was like a light bulb that said, don't wait until God puts you in a situation where you got to do something, right? And just kind of give you an example. Before I told you there was a time in my life where I had to go to the hospital. I started having panic attacks. My blood pressure wouldn't come down. It was all of these different things that was going on with my body, and I didn't understand it. And I was in crisis management mode, and I didn't know how to get out of. I didn't understand how to get out of it.
Yeah.
But what I ended up doing was I made a declaration to myself, and that declaration was, "What did I deem to be good?" This is kind of how I broke myself from it. And how does this serve me? Like, if I deem this to be good, what was this trying to show me? And so once I came to the conclusion on both of those things, I set forth on a plan and I got myself back to the place that I wanted to. But not only that, understanding what I went through, this is where the awakening part happens, like why my blood pressure was the way it was, why I had to, work out the way that I had to. It set me up for future success in the life that I want to live.
Yeah. Yeah. To that, just to, I guess, answer that as well. As far as what's something that I woke from and I was able to handle it. Let me preface it by saying, I believe that I'm a smart person. Like, I believe that I can always figure things out. If I can't, like, if my brain is not thinking, I know something's wrong. I know, like, I'm in crisis mode and I'm tripping. So I remember, if my parents watching, forgive me for this.
Shout out, mama.
One time, a long time ago, when I hadn't quite started taking driver's ed yet, and I was about to, and my sister was like, "Hey, you want to pull in the driveway?" And so I started pulling in the driveway, and I don't know what happened, but I mixed up the gas and the brake pedal. And so when I tried to mash on the brakes, I mashed on the gas. And so my sister just started screaming, and I can't think like that. Like if it's a lot of, it's like, so I had to just slow down, even though I'm driving into the house, but this is happening in slow motion. I had to slow down, wake up, get myself together. And I was just like, okay, since I mashed this and it goes, that means this other one has to stop. And then I was able to stop before any damage was done or we crashed into the house. And then I got out the car. My sister, drove it in, and we just fixed the grass so they wouldn't know that something was wrong. But it's the simple stuff like that, like knowing yourself, being tuned into yourself enough to know you got to wake up. But go ahead.
And that's actually the point that I was making about how hard it is for me to find a location in my brain of an instant, because just like in your circumstances, you were able to, you like, that was instantaneous. Like, you didn't have time to process, like, I'm not awake. Like, you woke up instantly, right? And again, there was something that happened in your life that made you decide that in crisis moments, I'm going to be awoke versus panic, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny, and you're talking about from a young age. I have similar stories from a young age, bro. Like, Quentin, shout out to my boy Quentin. So shout out to Quentin, because Quentin actually did run into my house. Just FYI. We pulled up in my driveway one day, and his brakes went out in the driveway. And it wasn't like we couldn't have been flying up into the driveway, because, we come to the driveway. But it went out, so we were rolling. And in my mind, when he said he couldn't stop, I didn't necessarily go into crisis mode. I went into awake mode. And in my mind, I was thinking, you need to hit the emergency brake, bro. You need to hit the emergency brake, right? But he could not function right, and he just ran right into my daddy's house, right? And knocked the bricks loose on the garage and everything, right? And so now, again, mind you, this is somebody that's in crisis mode versus not at the same time. But even so much so that when we got out of the vehicle, he was still in crisis mode because it's like, what are we gonna do? But because I'm processing it such a different way, it didn't even. It bothered me, but it didn't bother me to that extent because it was more of this is how this is going to be handled. I already know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But go ahead, Jay.
Right. So one of the key things in this to help wake up is you can only control what you can control, and what you can't, it just is what it is. You know, somebody might be upset. That's for them to handle. You know what I mean? It's you didn't intentionally do anything wrong, and you're gonna do what you need to do to make things right. But just know that one, you can only control what you can control, and it's important that you can control yourself. You can control your reaction to things. You can control your thoughts in those moments by practicing, your normal state. Like you said, I got to get back to my normal state. And for me, my normal state is I have complete control over my thoughts. Like I can think my way into situations. I can see the logic and the patterns in things, but only when I'm clear. When I'm not, it's like put it like this. There's something called lucid dreaming where you can either control your dream or you can just, astral project and travel and things of that nature. And there's clues that people use to let them know that they're dreaming, which is they might look at their phone and it's not any real legible language or something like that. And in this so-called reality, that's my trigger. It's like, wait, I can't think straight. Like I can't access my logic. Something's wrong. Wake up. And then it's like, and it's cool because everything does happen in slow motion. Like you can do this so fast that you can start the whole awakening process from whatever you're in. And I know we haven't touched on the spiritual awakening yet. We're just talking about regular awakening. But yeah.
Nah. I mean, again, just me thinking about. So first of all, let me go back. Trying to control things that you can't control.
Yeah.
And breaking yourself free from that mindset is very, very key. Again, it's two pieces here. Being aware of what's really going on, what control you have over it, like if you have any control, and then if you don't have any control over how to break yourself from realizing that you don't have control over that. Because again, there's always this active or effort piece that drives your crisis.
Yeah.
Because you're touching on things that you really cannot touch on. Again, if I am yelling at Quentin why he's gonna run into my house, he probably doesn't run into the garage. He runs into the bedroom because he panics, right? And again, I have no control over the steering wheel. I have no control over the brake or anything. The only thing I can control is myself. And so again, by me being aware of that, I did not exacerbate the situation. Go ahead, Jay.
And it's funny too, right? Because I mean, like you said, like yelling would have made it way worse because it's hard to add to the noise. Like when I play basketball, there's this teammate I sometimes have. Like let's say a ball gets knocked loose and I'm about to go for it. His voice would just switch to high pitch mode and he'd be like, "Get the ball!" Like but it sounds like he's in a panic. So I would just stop because I'm like, "Shoot, is he hurt?" Like I don't want to contribute to him hurt. And he's like, "Why don't you get the ball?" I'm like, "Cause you yelling like a mad person." Like I'm thinking something like you hurt or something. And it's funny. And I had to kind of even with that because he does it so often that I got to kind of remember. But it still catches me off guard because to me, it's like if somebody's yelling like that, like they're in pain or turmoil, I actually slow down because it's like, okay, let me assess what's going on, where the danger is coming from, or because you don't want to add to it and you want to relieve it if possible. So yeah, so I would say yeah, being centered within yourself helps a lot too. Go ahead.
No, I like it, and the reason why, okay, so you said being centered. I like to think of it, and again, you might not even feel like in the circumstance you even have time to stop and just listen, or just kind of intake what's going on. But I like to think of it like just allowing whatever it is to be, so that way you can just kind of just take it in. Because a lot of this is like just take in what you see right now, take in what you're witnessing, take in what you're hearing, and don't base it off what you thought in the past. In a sense, see what this really means to you in this moment. You know what I'm saying? Because again, it's funny that like you're right. If I was on the court and I heard somebody's voice change, I'm gonna stop too. I would. The reason why, because I'm going to think that number one, there's so many processes that's going on in my head. This is not a situation where there's a high voice. This is not a situation like it's so much stuff that I'm going to process in that moment, and it's gonna cause me to pause. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and that's key too. Like, you know, the outliers are the things that cause you to usually it causes people to move in a panic, and that's the farthest thing. You don't want to panic. You want to so much control yourself that you are always calm of thought. But in some instances, that does take practice because you know, sometimes you may be bombarded with thoughts all the time that you don't even know that peaceful self to even know that you can get to a quiet place. Again, I can't say where it came from, but I've always noticed that I can't accomplish anything in a panic. Like if I'm in a panic or I'm in a distraught state, nothing happens. It just seems worse than it actually is when it might not even be that worse. But also I would say too, if you're beginning to take control of your thoughts in this way, don't beat yourself up when you still succumb to it, because in many instances now you're aware of it. I still remember being a kid and like I'm crying, but I'm mad that I'm crying. I'm like like I'm trying to stop, but I'm aware like, man, why am I even crying right now? This is dumb. But it was the process. It was the process that you kind of have to go to resume control, to even make that awakening to get yourself out of a crisis state.
But to your point though, bro, like when you're in a crisis is the top thought of mind. Again, that's the reason why you have to reframe what you're thinking. So so what I mean by saying that is that there's nothing else that can come in, take over the place of the crisis if you put it at the top of your mind. Bro, there have been plenty times back in the day when I was actually working a real job and me and Chardonnay used to argue all the time. Where I would get into an argument with her on the way to work.
Yeah.
And when I pull up to work, because I cannot remove what's in my mind out of my mind. Like I can't even go to work because I know that if I go into work, I won't be able to function on the or actually process the work that's in front of me because what's on the top of mind will not go away. And the reason again for part of that is not taking a second to allow whatever is to be, to understand it, to digest it, and not be to have an, because again we say crisis is not having an instant resolution in a sense to something, because if you got an instant resolution, it's not no longer a crisis. It's like I can solve it, right? And so a lot of times, and again, just using the situation with me and Chardonnay, a part of the solution was me allowing myself to not be upset, right? But because I could control what she was saying or the way she felt or whatever was going on at that time, I stayed in crisis mode, which put that at the top of my mind and never allowed for it to provide a solution that I needed in order for me to free myself. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. And also, like, so a lot of times people don't realize is we talk a lot about the hypnotic rhythm, about the habitual nature of things. And so a lot of people are in the habit of not controlling this, of letting this build up. So it becomes a part of who they are. And it's always, and it can become hard to separate it from yourself when you believe you are a part of this crisis. Like this is yours to own. Like, and it's crazy because you think like, who would want to own a crisis? But if you've been in that state for so long, you can't distinguish the two. And it's a very tough thing to do. And so like, which at the same time, I'm not hard on others when I see that they're in that state. I'm very like lenient, like it's okay, you know, this is not above you. This is not even of you. It's just, you know, you'll shake this free. But go ahead.
No, I think that's a good question that we should ask ourselves. Who would want to own a crisis? Who would want to own sadness? Who would want to own displeasure? Who would want to own any of these? Because the reality of what you're saying is these are states that we choose to be in.
Yeah.
Right? Even from the example that I'm telling you, and again, I'm so happy that this is so many years ago. You know what I'm saying? But even from the example that I'm telling you of me sitting in traffic, being in an argument with my wife, getting to work, and knowing that the simplest thing that I could have done was, all right, babe, love you. I hope you have a good day. Talk to you later. And just even in me saying that now, you can feel it in your gut. There's joy.
Yeah.
And that's me choosing to not hold on to the anger, to not hold on to the crisis, to not hold on. And it's just funny. The question that I think that is important in this is, first of all, identifying what this issue is and ask yourself, who wants to own that? I like that, Jay. That was what's up.
Yeah. Right. But again, the key to that is you can only ask yourself that question when you're in a slightly awakened state. Like,
right, being aware, knowing.
Right, because when you're stuck in that crisis state, again, it's tough to separate yourself from it. Like, because even in it, like people are at least aware enough that they don't want to be in it, but they don't always have the keys to break themselves free. They don't always know how, because it, usually being in that state would lead to yelling or lashing out or something of that nature. So it's almost like you have to reprogram yourself to notice these signs to be able to break free from it. Go ahead.
No. And I agree with you, because I do know, again, that's to the point that I'm making, that when Christ is at the top of your mind, there's nothing that's going to go. You can't see anything. You have those blinders on. But I also think that there's always something in your subconscious mind that's telling, again, I just want to use arguments as a vehicle to explain what I'm saying, right? But in a marriage, you'll argue about the stupidest things. Like it just be dumb. It's too hot in here. Like what you mean it's too hot in here? It could be the craziest things. But and again, I know why it's hard for things to move beyond the crisis management that's at the top of your mind. But along the way, that's why I love what you said. You have to stop and ask yourself the truth. And again, that's about being aware. Do I really want to argue about the temperature? Do I really want to be mad about the temperature right now? Again, I know this is a big argument. It might have spawned into a bunch of different stuff. But the question is, me being aware, me stopping for a second to be in the state that I'm in and recognize it. What are we talking about here? Did this start from me talking about it being too hot? Do I really want to own being upset about being hot? Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. So one of the things to do that it has helped, and this is easy for me now. Like, this is super easy for me now. It wasn't always this easy before, but like, we talk about meditation, but it's not so much the meditation that does it. It's the letting go of all things. So it's like when you first close your eyes, you start at the top of your head and you start to relax everything, and you just go down, you relax your eyebrows, your eyes, your nose, your ears, your lip. You be like, oh snap, I didn't know my lip was tensed. Like, you just, like, these things you didn't know because you never took the time out to just relax everything. And by the time you get to your feet, it's like you're almost like, wow, this is different. And when you sit in that relaxed state, you just feel whatever was on you, like that pressure just leave. And that doesn't mean that the situation is handled, but it just means that you can see it clearly for what it is. You can see that, okay, can I contribute to the solution, or is the solution out of my hands? Do I just have to accept this? But then you're also in a space where you can accept it. And so like that's one key thing. Like, that's why I like what you said about going to work. You can't go into work like this. You can't. You shouldn't even interact with another. You shouldn't make any decisions from that state. You should do what you need to do to trigger that letting go process, to free yourself, to kind of get back into the mind frame where, okay, I can make a better decision.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100% with that. And again, I think that a part of that is, and again, I also know that what I'm saying is not necessarily the easiest thing to do when you don't have practice in doing it, but you have to be able to sit in silence in any given moment. You got to be able to look, like, again, it's so easy to look at everything else because that's where our eyes are pointing at. But you got to take a second in any given situation to look at yourself, allow yourself to be. And the crazy thing about it is, I'm saying that it's difficult, but it's not like that. This is a habitual function that we have every day anyway. Yeah. Because in anything that's not in crisis mode, we're placing ourselves where we belong in that in every given moment. Like, it's just a natural behavior. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and again, it's only difficult when you first start. like I can't even remember. I'm grateful for this, but I can't remember a time when it was difficult because I've been so much in this practice. But just knowing that you can get to a point where you're not bombarded with thoughts is worth it to even aspire to. And again, like you might not get it the first few times you try to quiet your mind, but it's important to at least try. It's important to believe, to say, I'm gonna get there one day. It might not be today, it might be a year from now, 2 years from now. I'm gonna get there one day. And briefly, I'll try to make this short, but I want to talk about like my spiritual awakening, like how I kind of came to this space. And the one of the short versions, y'all hear me talk about A Course in Miracles all the time. Like that book helped because it broke down some of this, like some of the patterns and how I was adding to it. So, for example, if something happened that I didn't necessarily agree with, I was quick to maybe blame the other in that situation, or say it's them, like, man, they inconsiderate, blah blah blah. But at the same time, I'm being inconsiderate of what they think is considerate,
right?
And so, like, I'm mirroring the same behaviors that I'm giving to them, and so which is a clue that there's no separation in what you experience, meaning like that those properties that you give to someone else is because you have them to give, and it's never them. Like, and so one of the first lessons, I think this is in the 4 Agreements too, is like, don't take anything personal. It's never about you, someone else's actions. It's all them. Like, they might not even be hearing you right now because they're hearing the voices that are replaying in their head. They're hearing all the noise that they carry from time to time. And so it would start to be like a realization of this. Like, that book helped me to realize that. It helped me to realize how much of my past I am not. Like, we carry these scars, we carry this turmoil. We carry, like you said, like, who wants to carry this around? But we do. But not only do we carry it around, we believe in it so much that we wear it proudly. Like, I wish somebody would. I'm gonna unleash this fury on them. I'm gonna do, like, I'm gonna show them they don't know who they messing with. Because you're feeding that. You're feeding that anger. You're feeding that angst. You're feeding all of that fury. And when you realize that it was never real to begin with, it was just all a story. It was just all your imagination. It was all a dream that you need to awake from. It's tough. Like, especially when you see it for what it is, it's the hardest thing, because you almost want to be scared because you don't know who you are now. It's like, okay, shoot, I've been this angry person, or I've been this conceited person, whatever, this narcissist, whatever thing you want to say that you maybe gave to someone else, you're seeing it, and it's like, okay, I know I should let this go, but who am I now if I do let it go?
Yeah, there you go.
And so it becomes a scary thing.
It is scary, dog.
it is, and that's just the beginning. But once you get through it, it's like you realize all the beauty that is around you, even when others around you are screaming, crying wolf, or saying, the sky's falling. You don't see it because you see the peace, you see the love, you see the joy. And so I say all this to say, like, be willing to go through it, because you have to kind of go through it because you went through it to get to where you are now. So you have to actually go back through it to get back to your natural state of peace, love, and joy.
Funny is, and I'm gonna make this short too, is that I still remember and I think I told you about this before. Like, but I was sitting, I literally was standing in the bathroom, and I don't know how old I was at this time now.
Yeah.
And I was literally trying to, and I don't know why I was thinking this, but I remember what happened though. I was trying to understand what I think. I was like, what do you think? Right? I was like, what do you think? And then I don't know what I was trying to think about, what I thought about, and again, that's how you know how big and how grand this is, because it's more than all the time, right?
Yeah.
I say that. And so in the process of me looking in the mirror, looking at myself, and trying to figure out what I think, I realized that I didn't think anything. I realized in that moment that I didn't know anything. And I started thinking, like, why do I know that? Like, I was tripping. I never forget that moment, because you're right when you talk. And again, I don't know how fast it's supposed to happen, but when you start talking about the judgments that you have given everybody, in that moment when I was thinking about what I know and where it came from, and then everything that I gave out, that must hurt me more than it like that must hurt me, dog. and I was scared, and I was lost, and I was just like, dang, I do not know anything. But the beautiful part of it is, it's like Legos, honestly. You know what I'm saying? Like, now you get to pick which Lego you want. Okay, I like red, and then from that point forward, it was just kind of, even to this day, it's just building exactly what you want. But I definitely remember that day. But go ahead, Jay.
You said two things I want to expound on. So the first is about not knowing anything, and like people have to humble themselves to really realize that they know nothing, because again, like, what you mean I don't know nothing? Well, if you really knew, would you choose to be in this angry state? Would you choose to be in this crisis mode? Would you choose to see things or live sadly? Like, so you're like, no, it's because I know that I am this. Like, well, then it's not serving you. Why know that then if it's not bringing you what you want? And I had to come to that realization as well. Like, shoot, I don't know anything. Everything I thought I knew this is not helping me in the least bit. And so it's almost a surrendering to the higher power, or asking, like, how should I move? God or universe or the definite or infinite energy. What should be my next course of action? And even by stepping back and asking that question, there's a letting go. You're letting go of the pressures of having to figure everything out and giving it up to the higher power. So it's like you're giving up, but you're not giving up, because you're still in the game and you can be guided. So, and then the second thing is when you said it's like you get to pick your Lego. And what's cool about that is it's like you become the kid that you always wanted to be, but you have the permission of the adult. Like when you're a kid, you know what you want. Can nobody tell you, I want this, I want that. But there are other things that are saying you can't have this, you can't do this right now. But now you are in a position of an adult, but you have to clear all that clutter of the programming of the false doctrine that you were fed, so that you can get back to your knowing, your personal knowing, not my knowing, not Troy's knowing, your personal knowing, because you've always known from the beginning what would serve you best.
Nah, and the other piece of that that I could say that again, scary process. I won't act like I'm a grown person and just feeling like I got to figure out life again. But the beautiful part about that mug is, when you start to pick your Legos, you could actually see other people picking their Legos too. And along that journey, that fear that starts to fade away. And it's a lot of different reasons why that happens. Number one, you're not doing it alone. Number two, those judgments become apparent again, right? You start to see how you place things, and you even get to further remove stuff as you're building what you're building, because you still have a piece of that apart. You're habitual. You've been doing the same things. You've been knowing everything your whole life, and it's not an easy wipe away. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. So I want to tell about something interesting. What made me think of it is when you said, like, you can see everybody picking their Legos, but you can also see people who are not, like, who are in these complexes. So today, after we won one of our games of basketball, like, there was kind of a argument, which was almost a fight between two people, like one of my teammates and somebody that was on the other team. And the teammate had said something interesting. He's like, man, I don't be bothering nobody, man. I'm probably the fastest and strongest person out here, but I don't even do all that. I don't even do that. And then the other guy was like, well, what you want to do, man? I ain't scared of nobody here. And then both of them hearing that, I can hear their complexes. So one, like, the guy on my team, he feels he's greater than the role he's playing, but he's not stepping into his greatness for whatever reason, for a sense of I don't know. But he wants to be compensated for it. He wants to be appreciated for not going all out or certain things. But again, that's in his own mind, because on our team, man, go all out, do play your game. And then the other guy has a complex of, like, he thinks maybe he sees him, people might see him as weak, and he wants to prove his strength by showing how strong he is. But that's not how you prove your strength. But again, when you're in that certain mode, when you're used to feeding yourself thoughts from in crisis mode, you start thinking ill thoughts that don't make sense, that don't make logical sense from a logical standpoint. And so it's important to have these conversations with yourself. Listen to the logic that your mind tries to create on its own without tapping into your calmness or your peace or your love. Like listen from a love mind and listen from a fear mind. And the fear mind, it makes no sense.
So, and this is the question that you got to ask yourself. Why are you not trusting yourself when you're challenging or questioning yourself? And again, it's just a funny thought process to me. And the reason why I say that is because this is the way that we live our life anyway.
Yeah.
Every decision that we make, there's a question. And we answer the question and then we proceed with whatever that action is. And we can do that mug unencumbered without any doubt, any reservation, because we're trusting the process. Like even now, I know that I have to get up to the gym early so that way I can do perfect mode. But there's no question about how I'm going to do it. I know I need to get up early. I know I need to get my shirt. I know I need to hit JClay. I just get in the car and I go and I get here and I do it, right? And again, even though it sounds so simple, there's still a question in everything that I'm doing. And I'm answering it and I'm trusting myself to do it. But it's just whenever we come up against things that are fresh and new, we have an answer, but we're not trusting the answer that we're giving ourselves when we're professionals at doing that. But go ahead, Jay.
Right, but it's because you have two answers. Like when you answer that question, like again, like if you're tapped into the fear-based mind, like you like, nah, that's stupid. Like, what do they know? I know better. I know that don't lead to nothing. It doesn't lead to anything. It's going to lead to more turmoil. You're not going to have me looking stupid by centering myself and breathing deeply. Like that's going through people's minds. Go ahead.
The crazy thing is I 100% agree, because in saying it, I hear it in my head. But the question that you got to ask yourself in that is like, there's two answers all the time. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. We live this. When I decide that I'm going to drive up here, there's also a thought that I might have a wreck on the way, or I might run out of gas. There's some reason that I don't make it here, but I don't even give it any. I don't give it any life in a sense. You know what I'm saying? But go ahead, Jay.
Right, and I'm saying like you will get to a point where you won't even have a thought that you can get in a wreck, because even if you did, who cares? You still going. Everything is still going to be well. You still going to be right. Everything going to be right with the world. You get to choose. You get to choose the life you want to live. You get to choose how you handle these situations. And even a lot of times, from a more sound and logical standpoint, you can see that these situations are even brought for you to practice and see how much you've grown. Like you might say, I want to practice peace. I want to practice joy. Well, you can't just practice it when being surrounded by peace and joy. You have to be around the stuff, the icky stuff, the stuff that you don't like, and see, will you still choose it? Do you want it this bad that even in the face of a fight, even in the face of danger, that you're still willing to choose this? And once you do, it's like the threat is immediately gone. But if you don't, it's like, hey, we're gonna keep bumping heads. We're gonna keep bringing this situation up. And the reason I say this about, like, I agree with you that you should ask yourself these questions, but you can only but only from a certain point. Like it's most important to get out of your way first. Like, don't ask yourself, ask a higher source, or ask your higher self if you can even see yourself as a higher self. Because asking yourself in that state would just be perpetuating more and more of what got you what you have right now.
So this is a question for our audience, for you to kind of help us get there.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to recognize your higher self, if you don't understand where that is, how that is, or that it's just you, how do you get to a place where you're able to say, you know what, crisis situation, let me talk to my higher self so that way I can see outside of myself and then put this in a proper perspective so that way I can move forward with it?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say to that's a great question. I would say, don't even worry about seeing your higher self. Understand that, one, you didn't create yourself, right? From your knowledge, from your standpoint, you're here. You don't know how your body works. You don't know how this. So you know on some level there's a greater intelligence that may govern this. Like whether you believe in the God that people talk about or not, like you believe in a higher intelligence that brought this all together, that helped facilitate who you are and where you are. Speak to that. Like, speak to that intelligence that brought you into being. And ask that, like, okay, so you made this all possible, which means you can make anything possible. You can do anything. You could even get me out of this at the snap of your fingers. What should I do? Where should I go? And you will receive an answer from that, because a lot of times the answers are in the questions that we ask and who we're asking the question to. Because again, if you're asking a question to someone you know can help you, what do you expect to receive from that? You know what I mean? And wait, go ahead.
No. This is just further this question along, because what it sounds like in my interpretation of it is stop and pray, right? This is what the majority of people like to do. You know what I'm saying? But this is a question for you, right? If I stop and pray and I don't get the answer, I don't feel like I've gotten an answer, I don't feel like I have a clear vision, what would be the next step from there?
Well, see, here's the key, because people that would have that mindset are not prepared to get the answer. And it's like one of the things you hear about. Oh, go ahead.
Now say it one more time.
Yeah, people who would even consider a what if like that aren't prepared to get the answer. And so they won't be able to get the answer. Like it's like they say, faith and action work together. Like the action is believing that you're gonna get what you asked for. So again, you're asking this infinite intelligence that made you already. You will get an answer. But if you're waiting like 2 seconds to say, see, I ain't getting nothing, I told you this wasn't gonna work, you got your answer because you set forth your intention for this not to work.
It's like going to McDonald's and getting in the line for some soft serve ice cream and saying to yourself, I know the ice cream machine gonna be broke already. So, just kind of reiterate the point that Jay is making. Like, if number one, there's a sense of awareness if you're even thinking about what we're talking about, right? So you're not going into this not knowing. But if you're going to go into this not knowing, you're gonna have to trust, like I've been saying this entire time, that when I ask this question, the answer will be given to me. I will understand it. Yeah. And you have to believe that. Go ahead, Jay.
And to your point, so two things, like the soft serve example. Let's say your goal was to get some ice cream, and that first place didn't have it. You're gonna go to the next place because your goal is to get it. So you're gonna get an answer. It might not come immediately, but the thing is, you will know when you receive that answer because it stops you in your tracks, no matter what you're doing. Like, you might be having a conversation with somebody and they say something to you. You might be scrolling on social media and you stop and see something and it's like, this is the answer. Thank you. I get it.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you what's funny, and I know this is not the it is the same point, but it's funny when you talk about the download coming sometimes when you least expect it. And again, funny enough, I had my 25-year class reunion probably in October, September last year. And, all of these people that you haven't seen in 20, 25 years are coming up to you. And there's this one dude, and I knew that me and him were cool. Like, what's up, bro? I knew we were cool, but I could not think of his name to save my life, right? I couldn't think of it. But his name wasn't important at that moment, right? So I just gave him love. We talked about all time, boom, 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 right? And then a couple of other classmates came up to me and was like, Troy, what was his name? And I was like, I don't remember. And then so everybody going around, everybody asking me what's his name, because they see me having this big conversation with him. And I never knew, I could never remember it. Now, mind you, this happened in September. And so let me add this caveat. I said then, I told one of the guys that asked me, I said, don't worry about it. It's going to come to me. And when it comes to me, I'm going to let you know. Yeah. So probably about 4 or 5 days ago, bro, I'm driving and his name just popped up in my head, dog. It's no reason for me to think of it. It just literally, it just came. And I texted my guy and I was like, hey, you remember 5 months ago when you asked me about this? It was this person. This name just came to me. But to your point, there is a trust factor in it. I didn't have to think about it no more. Yeah. And again, you might think in that instant, I need to know the name now. But I didn't need to know the name now. That would have been crisis management, me trying to get something that I didn't have to have. And so, I just love the fact that you brought it up, that you have to trust and just allow for it to come. And that was an example for me.
Right. And oftentimes too, no immediate answer is an answer. Because it's like you might not really be able to handle that answer right now, or you could be asking for something that's almost unanswerable. Like you might ask God to smite somebody else, and it's like, no, like it's
smite him down.
like they are here for a reason, but you're not prepared to see the reason. Like, and shout out to Betty. She said, "Don't eat McDonald's," because you gave the McDonald's self-serve comment.
Shout out Betty. What up? What up? Man. Nah, bro. But again, I love the timing conversation, because again, when I think about us praying or stopping, there is always some type of instantaneous reaction that we want in all things.
Yeah.
And again, using yourself as the example, are you always instantaneous for the people that are looking for you to serve them in a sense, right? And so I just love the fact that what's supposed to be will be there when it's supposed to be there. I had no reason to know his name at that time because I didn't need to call his name. I just really didn't need to. It wasn't gonna make any difference in the communication, the camaraderie. Everything went smooth. There was no hiccups. It just wasn't no point. And it really might not have been even a point for me to get the download when I got the download. But the reality of it is, I asked for it, and it did come. But go ahead, Jay.
And I'm gonna ask this question, but this made me think of something. So, like, have you ever resisted growth during a tough time, only to later see how necessary it was? And one of the things too is, like, when we ask for an answer, like you said, like you ask this higher energy for an answer. There have been times I've gotten the answer, but it was just like, nope, I'm gonna act like I ain't hear it because I resisted growth in that moment. And this is a tough, but this is one of those realizations too, because once you realize this about yourself, you're like, how crazy is this? Why would I resist growth? I'm asking for this. Why wouldn't I step into this? I got the answer I sought for. I'm just not ready to accept it. Go ahead.
The best example of this, dog, the best, because I know you probably experienced it. Shouts out to Betty. I know she probably experienced it. Everybody that I know experienced it. All of us that are getting more grown in age, right? The thing that we are the most resistant to is newer technology, things that would make our life easier based off our own assumptions. Like, just as an example, I know pre-text texts are good for me because I repeat the same things over and over again. But getting myself to do these things, for whatever reason, would be like pulling teeth, just like most people in technology. But then eventually when you decide to do it, it's like, dang, what took me so long to do this when I knew that it could serve? And again, it wasn't that I was clueless that it would serve me. I knew that it could serve me, and I just was resistant to do it because it was new. But that's my thought process on that.
I'm like the whole meditation thing. Like I'd be having a thought like, man, why can't I just stop this thought? And literally 30 seconds and just like this in the relaxed state, I'm good. But I don't always go directly. Well, I do now, but there was a time when I wouldn't always go directly to that, even because my own ego. I'm like, man, that's not going to help, even though I believe this help. And it's like you said, we get in our own way, but for what? Because it's not. We're the only ones that it affects. We're getting in our own way, and again, it's crazy.
Again, just the biggest question of the day is, why do we get in our own way, dog? Like it's just, even when you said it now, in the context that we're talking about with technology, even though I know this is on a grander scale, and even though I know that I'm a person that works on this daily, like this is a part of my life, being able to be aware, to understand, to not be in crisis management mode, but yet and still, there are times when it happens. And then the question that I ask myself now, especially since you just said it, is, why am I getting in my own way? Why is this important to me for me to do? Like, I'm making it important because all the stuff that I do is stuff that's important. That's it. That I've deemed important, that I've put at the top of my list. And the question that you should ask yourself for anybody is, why? Like, why am I getting in my own way? But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. And we it makes no sense. So and then I want to answer this too. how do we know how do you know when you truly awakened from a crisis? And like any question, I'm sure there are many answers to this. Well, one, what to me is when you come into the same situation again and it doesn't affect you the same. Or like if there's a person you hate or that you've hated for so long, and then they come back into your life, or you see them somewhere and you don't have an emotional reaction, you know that you've ascended, you've awakened from that story that you've told yourself. What would you say to this question?
I would say that it's kind of similar to what you mentioned earlier in the podcast when you were saying that you know when you can feel it. You can actually feel that, like there's a feeling that kind of comes over you, um, that I won't say that it's hard to explain, but it's not complete to explain from somebody, but
Yeah.
you'll know it. But I think in an awakened state, you have that feeling over and over because you're continuously awakening to things because you're now you're you're accepting the awakened state. So like you get to awaken a lot of different areas and you'll just keep having that feeling over and over again. And that's what I think.
Yeah, and in a lot of instances too, it's like a dream. Like, when you if you've had a bad dream ever and you woke up like, I am so glad that was a dream, and then you forget the dream. Like after that, like this thing that had you in its grips, you forget about it. You don't even, you like, what did I dream the other day, or in this situation, what was the crisis I was in? I can't even remember right now. And that's how you know it's not that big of a deal, because when you have to recall crises, is that the plural, crises?
Yeah.
It's tough to do. But if you had to recall maybe times of joy, intense joy, you could easily recall it, like, oh yeah, this brought me joy, this brought me joy. Stay in that joy state.
Yeah. And again, I would even challenge to say that even in those crises, the ones that you remember, if you do remember them, because they brought you some sense of joy, some sense of what do you call it when
Accomplishment.
accomplishment? Yeah, it brought you so you've transferred that crises into a sense of joy, even though it's not a true sense of joy. But that's neither here nor that's a whole nother
Yeah.
conversation.
So we winding down now. Got a few minutes left. And so one, again, I appreciate everybody rocking with us. If you have any comments for the audience, for other people watching, any wisdom to share about this, about ways that you've overcome crises and stepped into spiritual awakening, feel free to share that. And just to recap, like, you want to recap, Troy, like how
Yeah,
someone can recognize this and move on. Go ahead.
yeah. So number one, um, in my mind, it's take a true inventory of yourself, true inventory of the circumstances. And what I mean by that is, this is all situational. In any given situation that you feel it's a crisis, stop. The crisis is going to be there, but look at yourself and see what this really, how it's truly affecting you. And what you'll tend to find out in most cases, there's no true effect until you actually walk into the crisis in crisis mode. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. And to add to that, like, right now, you're not in crisis mode. If you're watching this, listen to this right now, you're not in crisis mode. These are the best times to practice, like to practice that awareness. Like, think about what you're thinking right now to what I'm saying. Like, you might agree with it. You might regurgitate something real quick. That's another way. And I brought this up to Troy before this, how somebody said something to me on the basketball court, and I just kind of regurgitated something. And then somebody was like, man, is that a Bible quote? Like, what is that from? And it was just, it's just part of who I am. But I say that to say, like, I didn't even think about what I said. And if we can take time out to listen, or to what we would just say in response to something, like if somebody told you, your best friend said, hey, I got a way to make $1 billion next week. Like, you might say, oh, that's impossible. You can't do that. Why would you say that? That's your friend.
Yeah.
They gonna bring you with them. Why not listen first? But that's what I mean, how those instant responses can be a clue to where you are in that awakening state.
And the last piece, because I know we got to get out of here. The last piece will be, and you said this, to ask your higher self, but trust your higher self. You know what I'm saying? You have to trust that the answer that you're looking for will come. But that's how I go. Go ahead, Jay.
And if you're not ready to even see yourself or trust your higher self, trust the higher energy that created you. Now, on another level, you're gonna understand it's one and the same. But right now, you might not be there yet. So it's another thing. But yeah, appreciate y'all again. Hit like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff if you found this helpful. And just remember, you're a perfect creation made by a perfect creator. So you might as well accept your perfection and enter perfect mode. Yeah.
If I reminded you that you are perfect, would you argue me down or step into your perfection? Welcome to perfect mode, where there are no excuses, no expectations, and we explore the world without limitations. I'm JClay, rapper, the spiritual teacher, with my co-host Troy Washington, your friendly neighborhood realtor. Let's be real, so let's be perfect.